On the afternoon of November 2nd, 2022, a small group of people in McDonald County, Missouri gathered for a very somber occasion at a local funeral home. 2 days earlier, a couple in their family had experienced a devastating loss. The husband and wife had been expecting a baby, but the child had arrived early and had been delivered stillborn before they could make it to a hospital. As you might imagine, the day was very emotional and intimate, and the family members did what they could to support the couple through this awful time. It was especially tragic because this was not the first time they had lost a child in this way. Unfortunately, what almost nobody who attended the service knew, though, was that they were being lied to. Yes, a very real tragedy had taken place, and it was connected to what was happening that day. However, none of this was what it seemed. The truth about what was really going on here and the context behind it is what today's story is about. As always, my name is Nigel. I run this channel with my good friend Luke, and welcome back to Crime Zone. A reminder, if you do find today's video interesting and informative, be sure to like and subscribe for more true crime stories told with a mysterious and suspenseful vibe. With that out of the way, let's dive in. On October 31st, 2022, 33-year-old Ashley Bush had a lot to be excited about. She was 31 weeks pregnant with her fourth child. She was in a good relationship, and she was looking forward to starting a new job. Ashley lived in Benton County, Arkansas, with her three other children, Alexander, Harley, and Faith, as well as her fiancé, Joshua Willis. Joshua was the father of the new baby, as well as Ashley's youngest child. And though their romance had taken a bit of a roundabout path to get here, they both felt really solid in their relationship. Ashley and Joshua first met when they were still in school, and they'd been together back then as well. But from the sounds of it, life had gotten in the way. Joshua had to move, Ashley ended up marrying someone else, and for several years they had lost contact. However, they reconnected when Joshua came back to the area. By that point, Ashley was in the process of getting a divorce, and the timing seemed like it was finally on their side. They got engaged, and they had now been together for almost 3 years. Ashley and Joshua were both thrilled when they learned that they were going to be having another child. They couldn't wait to meet their new daughter, and they'd already picked out a name for her, Valkyrie. Now, that being said, as excited as Ashley and Joshua were, they weren't as comfortable as they would have liked to have been on the preparedness side of things. Because even though Ashley was not new at all to motherhood, this time around, she'd been dealt a pretty major setback. So, prior to getting pregnant again, Ashley was the main income earner in the family. This was because Joshua had a serious back injury, one that had required him to get multiple spinal surgeries. He was still recovering, which up until recently had been fine because he was able to stay home and look after the kids. But a few months into Ashley's pregnancy, she got a concerning update from her doctor. She was diagnosed with gestational hypertension, which is a type of high blood pressure that can develop during pregnancy. If left unaddressed, this condition can progress and cause much more serious complications. So the doctor recommended that Ashley really try to minimize stress and strain on her body. Well, that was a problem because Ashley worked as a cook at a nursing home. Basically a job where she exclusively worked long hours and had to be on her feet all day. So, not wanting to risk any harm to herself or her daughter, Ashley had made the difficult choice to quit. As you might imagine, this had put a lot of pressure on her and her family financially, but Ashley was determined to find a way to make things work. And as I mentioned before, that's where this new job had come in. By complete coincidence, she had come across an opportunity online that would allow her to work from home. Now, Ashley was still in the final stages of the interview process for this position, but she'd been assured that she was essentially in, and that's actually what she was doing that day. She was scheduled to meet with the man that was going to be her supervisor at this new company that she would be working for. Understandably, this was a huge relief to both Ashley and Joshua, and when they left their house that morning to head to this final interview, Ashley was feeling hopeful. But sadly, things wouldn't stay that way for long. You see, unbeknownst to her, she was caught up in something incredibly dark. In order to fully understand what that was, though, we have to go back a little bit to when all of this first started. A few days earlier, on October 25th, 2022, Ashley was browsing around on Facebook. This was something she'd been doing quite a bit lately, because she still needed a lot of stuff for the new baby, but things were really tight financially. She knew her only real option was to try and get things secondhand. So Ashley had been joining different groups for local moms and just kind of seeing what people were willing to sell or give away. So far, she'd had mixed success, but that changed when she came across a post from a woman named Lucy Barrows. Lucy had posted publicly saying, quote, "I have a bunch of baby items if any moms-to-be need them." After reaching out, Ashley and Lucy started exchanging messages, and Ashley couldn't believe her luck. When they got to talking a bit, Lucy said that not only did she have a ton of stuff she no longer needed that she was willing to give her, she might be able to help her out with her employment situation as well. Lucy explained that this big company she worked for called Conduent was always hiring. The jobs weren't glamorous or anything. A lot of it was like remote call center type work, but it was something. And most importantly, the position would allow Ashley to work from home. Needless to say, Ashley was interested, and so she asked, what do I need to do to take the next steps here? Lucy said that she lived about an hour away in a different part of Arkansas, so she suggested they meet up in person. That way, she could get a better idea of what baby stuff Ashley needed, and she could also get her started with her application for the job at Conduent. Ashley agreed, and they set up a meeting in the city of Gravette on October 28th at the local public library. When the day arrived, Ashley and Joshua met with Lucy, and everything seemed to go really well. Lucy conducted kind of a mini interview with Ashley, and she said that she thought she'd be a good fit for the company. She also brought some paperwork with her that she got Ashley to take a look at. In terms of the baby items, Lucy said that she basically had everything. Car seats, clothing, bed stuff. All they had to do was tell her what they wanted. Ashley and Joshua said that they would take anything because they really didn't have much, even though they were only a few weeks out from the birth. Lucy said that that was no problem, and that before they saw each other next time, she'd just load up her truck with as much as she could take. Ashley and Joshua thanked her, and they left feeling grateful and optimistic. Later that same evening, Lucy messaged Ashley again and said that she had some good news. She'd spoken with her supervisor, and he wanted to meet with her for a final interview. This was basically just a formality, according to Lucy, but still, they had to go to the company offices in Bentonville to do the whole thing in person. Since it was a Friday, she'd set up the interview for that coming Monday morning, October 31st. She also asked Ashley if she could meet her at a handy stop gas station in the city of Maysville, stating that she would take her the rest of the way. Ashley said absolutely, and with that, she went on with the rest of her weekend. As I said before, when the morning of the interview rolled around, Ashley was feeling good. But over the last couple of days, Joshua had started to have second thoughts. He couldn't shake the feeling that there was something weird about this whole situation. And that feeling only grew when, after arriving at the gas station in Maysville at the agreed-upon time of 9 a.m., Lucy wasn't there. She eventually messaged saying that she was running late, but she didn't actually arrive until well after 11. While they were sitting in their car together, Joshua even said to Ashley, it's not too late to back out of this. But Ashley was insistent. Part of that was that she was hopeful that this would all work out. But she was also like, what else are we going to do for money? When Lucy finally did get there, she apologized and said that she had been dealing with some personal stuff, but that she'd sorted everything out now. The interview with her supervisor was still on, and she was ready to go if Ashley was up for it. Ashley said yes, and the two of them left in Lucy's tan-colored pickup truck together a little bit before noon. Before they drove off, Joshua told Ashley to call him if she ran into any issues. She agreed, but he still couldn't shake that unsettled feeling in the pit of his stomach. Well, unfortunately, his instincts were about to be proven correct. Roughly 3 hours later, so just a few minutes before 3 o'clock that afternoon, Joshua got a message from Ashley. She texted him saying that she was done with the interview and that she was on her way back from Bentonville. They were passing through Gravette now, so they should be at the gas station in Maysville soon. Sure enough, a few minutes later, as Joshua was waiting patiently, he saw Lucy's tan truck heading down the road towards the handy stop. However, instead of pulling into the station, the truck blew right past and kept on driving. At first, Joshua thought that this was a mistake. Ashley and Lucy were just lost in conversation or something, and they would turn around any second. But they didn't. Instead, the truck got on Highway 43 and began heading north. Joshua started calling and texting Ashley repeatedly, but he got no response. After sitting there stunned for a few moments, he did try to follow Lucy's truck, but it was too late. It was gone. At this point, Joshua was still trying to rationalize all of this. He told himself that maybe Ashley and Lucy needed to pick something up. Maybe they had forgotten some of the baby stuff, so they were quickly going to get it. The more time that went by, though, the harder this was to believe, especially as his calls to Ashley continued to go to voicemail and his messages received no replies. And things were only about to get more frightening. When Joshua couldn't get a hold of Ashley, he figured he would try and contact Lucy instead. He didn't have a phone number for her, but he was getting pretty desperate, so he decided to call her company directly. Except, here's the thing. No one at Conduent had ever heard of Lucy Barrows before. That was just the beginning, though. You see, while Conduent was a large corporation with many locations across the US and globally, there was no office like the one that Lucy had described in Bentonville, Arkansas. As for the name of that supervisor Lucy had given, well, he was a Conduent employee, but he had quit 5 months ago. He also wasn't from anywhere around here. He was based out of the company's headquarters in New Jersey. After learning this, Joshua called the police. Based on the disturbing circumstances and the fact that Ashley was nearly 8 months pregnant, police wasted no time in launching a search. The next morning, her cell phone was discovered at the side of Highway 43, not far from the handy stop where she had last been seen. Joshua was actually the one that recovered the phone with the help of Ashley's cousin, who had managed to track it using its location services. The phone would prove to be a very valuable source of information. But of course, the way that it was found was extremely unsettling. It was yet another sign that Ashley could be in serious danger. To help increase the effectiveness of the search as much as possible, the day after that, so November 2nd, Joshua gave an interview with a local news outlet in Northwest Arkansas. In it, he went over many of the details of Ashley's disappearance and pleaded for her safe return as well as the return of his unborn daughter.
Friday afternoon, she messaged Ashley and told Ashley that her boss wanted to meet her at 9 o'clock on Monday. Around 10:30, 11 o'clock, Lucy messaged her again and told her that she'd meet her at 11 o'clock at Handy Stop to take her to meet the boss. That's when I started getting suspicious about her. On Monday, Friday, she was just in a shirt, had like a sweater or something over the top of it, and when she took her top shirt off, she had a yellow tank top, like she wasn't even prepared for her interview. She forgot all of her computers and stuff that she was supposed to do the interview with on Friday. She was having complications. All she had was paperwork for the company that she was supposed to work for, which was Conduent. They're watching. I cannot believe that they offered to help us all out, and then they took off with her. I wish they would just either turn themselves in or bring Ashley back home to us, to where we know they're all safe and that her and the baby aren't harmed.
Sadly, though, that was not going to happen. Because if you remember, I told you at the beginning of this video, there was something else happening that afternoon at almost the exact same time as this interview. In fact, there was a whole other set of seemingly parallel events that had been happening for the last couple of days. But as police and everyone else were about to learn, they were actually connected in the absolute worst possible way imaginable. At around 5 p.m. on October 31st, so a couple of hours after Ashley Bush went missing, emergency responders just over the state line in McDonald County, Missouri, received a 911 call. They were told that a woman in the city of Pineville had gone into labor at her home. She was now on her way to the hospital with her husband, but it seemed like something was seriously wrong with her baby. An ambulance was immediately dispatched, and they met the couple in the parking lot of a store in the community of Longview. The woman was 42-year-old Amber Waterman, and the man was her husband, 44-year-old Jamie Waterman. Amber was holding a newborn little girl who wasn't breathing. Paramedics tried everything they could think of to help the baby, but sadly, there wasn't much that they could do. It appeared that the little girl had been delivered stillborn. After the child was pronounced dead, emergency responders were understandably concerned about Amber, and they still wanted her to go to the hospital to get checked out. However, she refused any kind of treatment. Obviously, they seriously advised her against this, but they couldn't force Amber to go to the hospital. Now, at the time this happened, nothing about this really seemed suspicious to the paramedics and police at the scene. Amber was very emotional, as you would expect for someone who had just lost a baby. And as authorities spoke to Jamie Waterman, things also appeared to check out. He explained that his wife had suffered a number of miscarriages in the past. And given Amber's age, paramedics knew that this would have inherently been a higher risk pregnancy to begin with. That being the case, the Watermans were allowed to leave, and both the baby's remains and the placenta were taken to a local funeral home. It was here, on the afternoon of November 2nd, that the Watermans would hold a small service with a close group of friends and family members. Like I said before, it was a very somber event. Amber and Jamie told everyone that they had named their daughter Dakota, so this was the name everyone was kind of using to honor the deceased child. However, as heartbreaking as things already were, no one in attendance expected the devastating twist that came next. As soon as the funeral was over, representatives from the Benton County Coroner's Office in Arkansas showed up. They explained that they were there to collect the remains of the baby because it had been decided that an autopsy needed to be performed. You see, between the time of the baby's death and the funeral service, authorities in both Arkansas and Missouri had learned some things. For starters, they had discovered that Amber and Jamie Waterman owned the exact make and model of tan pickup truck that Ashley Bush had been in the last time that she was seen. When they recovered Ashley's cell phone and began digging into that Lucy Barrows Facebook profile, they found out it had only been created shortly before exchanging messages with Ashley. Not only that, but upon tracing the IP address linked to the profile, it led police straight to the Waterman's T-Mobile account. Finally, there was the geolocation data from Ashley's phone. It showed her following the exact path from her home on the morning of October 31st to the handy stop in Maysville. After leaving, the device had eventually ended up at Amber and Jamie's home in Pineville, Missouri, before it was discarded at the side of Highway 43 later that same night. Even with all of this evidence, though, at first, police still had their doubts that the Watermans were connected to Ashley's disappearance. But that all went away when they saw Amber's reaction to those coroner's office employees informing her that they were taking the baby's remains away for testing. Right up until this point, Amber had everyone convinced she was a grieving mother. However, the moment she learned that an autopsy was going to be done, her demeanor completely changed. Suddenly, the only thing she cared about was whether police were going to conduct DNA analysis. Of course, police did do this, and soon everyone's worst fears were confirmed. This baby did not belong to Amber Waterman. Her actual mother was Ashley Bush. And if there were any remaining doubts as to the Watermans' involvement, that went away when Ashley's fiancé, Joshua, was shown a picture of Amber. He said that he was certain that she and Lucy Barrows were the same person. Much of the rest of the chilling story behind what had happened here would unravel the following day, when police interviewed Jamie Waterman. I should say, this is not the first time Jamie was questioned by investigators. He and Amber had both been spoken to multiple times over the past couple of days. But during those prior conversations, police didn't have anywhere near as much evidence as they did now. And seemingly aware of this, Jamie agreed to talk. It's impossible to know for sure how much of what he said was true, especially as it relates to when he knew what he knew, but here's what we were able to piece together based on court records. So, sometime between October 24th and 25th, Amber created the fake Lucy Barrows Facebook profile. She then started joining groups intended for mothers in and around Northwest Arkansas and making public posts offering to donate old baby supplies. She was never intending to help these mothers, though. Instead, she was looking for a victim. After exchanging messages with Ashley Bush and realizing that she was in desperate need of work and worried about money, Amber concocted that whole story about the job at Conduent. She then tricked Ashley into meeting up with her, gaining her trust with lies and phony paperwork before convincing her to go off alone with her during their second meeting. It's unclear exactly what happened between the time that Ashley got into Amber's truck and when Joshua saw them drive past him later that afternoon. But we do know that this was a kidnapping. And at some point, after taking Ashley back to her home in Pineville, Missouri, Amber shot and killed her. She then cut her unborn baby out of her womb, intending to keep the child as her own. Chillingly, in order to make things seem more convincing when she called 911 that evening on the way to the hospital, Amber apparently stuffed Ashley's placenta into her pants. I should add that the timeline surrounding the actual murder appears to be pretty fuzzy, but according to court records, the cell data from Ashley's phone first showed her arriving at the Waterman's address as early as 1:09 p.m. on October 31st. So, it's entirely possible that by the time Joshua saw Amber's truck that afternoon, it was already too late to help Ashley and Valkyrie. Now, as I said, it's impossible to know to what extent Jamie knew about this whole plan beforehand. But if his story is to be believed, he only found out that the child wasn't actually his the next day, when Amber showed him Ashley's body hidden underneath a tarp next to a boat outside their house. What he did confess to, though, was helping his wife to try and cover up the crime. He said the two of them had put Ashley in a burn barrel and set her remains on fire, along with a bunch of garbage, furniture, and other debris. Afterwards, he loaded what was left into his truck and disposed of everything in a random area nearby. Following his confession, Jamie led police to this spot, and Ashley's remains were collected. It was later determined during an autopsy that Ashley had died, quote, as a result of penetrating trauma of the torso. Following Jamie's confession, he and Amber were both arrested. Amber's tan pickup truck was also seized and tested, with blood belonging to Ashley recovered from inside. Initially, both of them pleaded not guilty to any of the charges against them. However, they eventually changed their minds. On July 30th, 2024, Amber pleaded guilty to 1 count of kidnapping resulting in death and 1 count of thereby causing the death of a child in utero. 3 months later, Jamie pleaded guilty to 1 count of being an accessory to kidnapping resulting in death. While it seems that no information regarding Jamie's sentencing has been released yet, authorities stated in a press release from late last year that he was looking at up to 15 years in prison without parole. Amber, meanwhile, was handed 2 consecutive life sentences. Strangely, this isn't the end of the story, though. You see, even though this sentence would have seen Amber spend the rest of her life behind bars, authorities in Arkansas felt like it wasn't enough, and they announced that they would be going after her again, this time seeking the death penalty. Now, you might be wondering, isn't that double jeopardy? Well, that's exactly what Amber's lawyers said, but the state of Arkansas argued that because Amber was convicted federally, they could still bring a case against her at the state level as well. This recently made its way to the Arkansas Supreme Court, where it was decided that proceedings against Amber could continue. That being said, it's still very unclear what will happen at this point. Amber's lawyers are still fighting, not just in this new case, but also trying to get her federal convictions overturned on the grounds that her rights were violated during the police investigation. Just last week, they also successfully won a motion for a mental fitness exam because of a supposed lesion on her brain. However, at this time, her convictions at the federal level stand, and she remains in prison. As for the loved ones of Ashley Bush, they were completely blindsided and devastated by the way that she and Valkyrie had been so cruelly taken from them. Not only that, but they were haunted by the fact that Ashley had just been randomly targeted by this complete stranger. In a statement following the awful revelations, Joshua said in part, quote, I'm disgusted in the whole situation. I wish that Ashley and Valkyrie were alive and home with us all. I can't believe there are people out there who would do something like this. She was a great mother, a wonderful wife, a very outgoing, caring, and kind person. They didn't deserve this. Speaking of Joshua, while there's a lot of people to feel terrible for in this case, especially Ashley's surviving children, I couldn't help but feel crushed by his ordeal in all of this. Not only did he have to deal with the same loss as all of Ashley's other loved ones, he lost a child as well. And on top of this, before the truth about Ashley's disappearance came to light, there were plenty of people that assumed he was the one who was responsible. He actually addressed this in that same interview we showed you earlier.
Anything else you want people to know?
There's a lot of stuff being said on Facebook right now that I'm a suspect. I just want everybody to know out there, I am not a suspect. I loved Ashley with everything I had. We've been together for almost 3 years. We went to school together. We got together in school. I moved, we separated, and now we're back. We've got a wonderful kid. I've got 2 wonderful stepkids that they don't even know what's going on with their mom yet. I would never do anything to harm her at all whatsoever. I'm not that type of guy. I just want her back. We were actually talking about getting married in June after her divorce and everything was finalized, because we're just waiting on a little bit of paperwork for it to be done. So we all had plans. Everything was happy. We weren't fighting. We had plans to do things, and now everything's to a halt. I just want her home.
I don't know about you, but that last bit there hits particularly hard now knowing that Ashley Bush would never be coming home. At the time of this recording, both Amber and Jamie Waterman remain incarcerated. Before we wrap up, we'd like to take a second to give a huge shout out to everyone who has made it this far into the video. Seriously, thank you so much for watching. If you found today's upload interesting and informative, we'd be honored if you consider liking and subscribing, as well as hitting the notification bell and selecting all notifications to stay up to date with our latest releases. If you're looking for additional ways to help support the channel, we'd love to have you join us over on Patreon. Patrons get ad-free and early access to all of our content, as well as 4 additional stories per week for each of our Crimes of the Week and Crimes of the Week International videos. You can learn more at patreon.com/crimezone, where you'll also find some of the fine folks whose names are currently on screen. All that being said, we understand that not everyone has the means to support financially, and that's totally okay. We appreciate every like, sub, share, and comment that you send our way. Once again, thanks so much, everyone, and take care.